Then they left the military academy after the post-test in a state of stunned shock. Took the information back to Ken Cooper, and he utterly refused to even look at it. He didn't believe his own people. Now, in what way did we influence these people? Not at all. We stayed away from them. We didn't associate with them. Their dealings were strictly with the military academy personnel. We avoided them like the plague because we did not later want to be accused of having in any fashion influenced these people's decision. But we demonstrated 7.5 years ago at West Point the ability to produce an improvement in cardiovascular ability in a period of 6 weeks that is impossible to produce in 6 months in any other fashion. Now, some of you may think that's an overstatement. It isn't. It's an understatement. I could have said 6 years and it would have been equally true. 60 years? 600 years? Doesn't matter. Starting with people who are already in what they consider to be good cardiovascular condition. With proper training, you can improve their cardiovascular condition in 6 weeks to a degree, to a level that is impossible to attain in any other fashion with any amount of training. Not difficult, impossible. Now, what is cardiovascular condition? Well, we don't really know, but we can test some of the effects. We took a group of cadets, military cadets, who are not random people by the very fact that they're in the military academy. They're very select people. Secondly, these people were football players, which means they were doubly selected physical specimens. We trained them for 2 weeks in order to get them in good enough condition that we could test them without killing them. Now, these people had been in a wide variety of physical activities for years. Every one of them had been on a strength program for several years. They were all involved in running and wrestling and fist fighting in a wide variety of activities. So they were outstanding physical specimens to start with. Yet the level of training we were going to give them was such that they literally could not tolerate it without 2 weeks of careful break-in training. After 2 weeks, then we tested them. And then a little less than 6 weeks later, we tested them again. And Cooper's people tested them, and the academy tested them, and other outside experts tested them. The first test for cardiovascular purposes was to run them through a workout non-stop. We laid out the machines in an L shape, down one wall, around the corner, and down another wall. And then we wired them up with a transmitter on their chest, transmitting a signal from their heart to an EKG, which we had modified for this purpose. We modified the EKG so that we had a needle pointing to a dial, somewhat like an automobile speedometer. We needed that in order not to kill these people. That wasn't the purpose. The idea was to test them, not to kill them. So when their heart rate would approach 230, at which point normal individuals go into fibrillation, the heart is no longer a pump, it becomes a vibrating machine, and you die. So when their heart would get over 225, we'd back off a little. When it got down to about 210, we'd lean on them again. And we kept these people at that level for 40 minutes. Within a few seconds of getting into the program, less than a minute, they were way over 200, and they stayed that way for 40 minutes. We filmed all of this with multiple synchronous cameras so that at no time were they ever not on camera from several different angles. We ran a camera on the face of the EKG on the speedometer so we could tell at any given moment by looking at one film, putting him into sync, what is he doing? What effect is that having on his heartbeat? We shot literally hundreds of thousands of feet of color film during that experiment. 6 weeks later, we put them through the same program. Except by that point, they had improved so much that they were able to perform 60% more work in only 75% of the time. Now let's look in very simple terms at the cardiovascular load. During their first workout, they performed, we'll say arbitrarily, 100 units of work. Whatever they did, call it 100 units, 100%. And how long did it take them to do it? 40 minutes. So we divide the 40 minutes of time into the 100 units of work, which means that their average pace of work was 2.5 units of work per minute. And what did that do to them? It damn near killed them. At the end of the program, they were all literally in a state of shock. They couldn't stand up. Some of them didn't know their names. We were practically dragging them from one machine to the next. 6 weeks later, the same people went through the same program. Except now it didn't take them 40 minutes. It only took them 30 minutes. Using 60% more weight, doing the same number of repetitions at the same speed of movement. So now, instead of dividing 40 minutes into 100 units of work for an average pace of work of 2.5 units per minute, now we've got more work. We've got 160 units of work and only 30 units of time. So divide the 30 into the 160, and they were then doing 5.3 units of work per minute. They had more than double the metabolic load per minute. And what effect did that have on their pulse? One of them hit 192 briefly. The other members never cracked 190. They stayed in the high 150s to low 160s to the high 180s. In other words, previously their pulse rate was running from 210 to 230. Now, doing more than twice the work per minute, and then only one subject cracked 190. He went to 192. We were trying to get him up over 200. We couldn't. They had increased that much in 6 weeks. Actually, less than 6 weeks. Now, a wide variety of other tests were given to them. One of the things they did was the 2-mile run in minimum time. Throttle to the floor, absolute, all out for 2 miles, and measure their elapsed time. In this same 6 weeks period, they reduced their time in the 2-mile run by an average of 88 seconds. Now, mind you, they were already trained athletes to start with. A control group of other football players that were trained simultaneously in a conventional manner, and both groups taking, in addition to the other programs, both groups involved in spring football practice, the other group improved 20 seconds. So we improved our people 88 seconds against 20 seconds improvement that the other group had. Every single test that was conducted on these people gave similar results. They were 60% stronger, 60. That's an increase of 10% per week in strength. Their metabolic or cardiovascular ability was more than doubled. And by the way, after that first test, where they did 100 units in 40 minutes, and were in shock afterwards, some of them laid on the floor of the gym for 2 hours afterwards. The subsequent test 6 weeks later, one of the guys finished the end of the test, ripped the transmitter off his chest, and ran out of the gym at a dead run, down the hall, down the steps, into another gym, and got into a boxing ring less than 5 minutes later and beat the hell out of another guy immediately after the test. So he wasn't exactly in shock. Now that's the kind of results you can get. But that's not the kind of results you are going to get if you go through some of these namby-pamby circuit training routines that people call cardiovascular testing of the ability of strength training. You are wasting your time with those. I'm not telling you it's an easy way to train. I don't know any easy ways to train that are worth doing. I know some effective ways. I know some fast ways. I know some very productive ways, but there isn't a damn thing easy about any of them. So if you're looking for an easy way to do something, you've come to the wrong place, because this ain't it.